Hello, guys. Welcome back to Lunatic Astrology. I'm your astrologer and today tarot reader, Lori Lothian. I'm going to talk about why I think the Senate will flip to the Democrats, which seems unlikely, I know, but I think it's going to happen. I'm going to start by sharing a bit about Mitch McConnell and his chart, because if the Senate flips, of course, he will lose his position as the head honcho of the United States Senate. And you can look at his outcome to determine the Senate's outcome, because obviously if he has a fall from power, it means that the Senate, unless he's sick, it means that the Senate is no longer in control by the Republican Party and no longer has, I think he's Speaker, right, of the House. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I don't know the name for the US Senate top dog because I'm Canadian, but you know what I mean. He's the top guy. So let's go ahead and take a look at his chart. But before I do, some of you may or may not know that I'm a tarot card reader. And I've been a tarot card reader since I was in my 20s. And my very first deck that I ever got is this beautiful, really worn out, missing maybe a couple of cards, Salvador Dali deck. And might have been like 29 years old, 28 years old, lived in New York City. And it was a gift from my then husband, father of my children. And it started me off on a career that in my 30s, I was a full-time clairvoyant. And I didn't use cards, toss them aside. I can tell the future without cards, but, and really I was good at it and all that. But I like to use cards. It's very depictive and descriptive in terms of imagery. My question was, what is the relationship that the GOP, the United States Republican Party, will have in relationship to the Senate after this election? And guys, I kid you not, it was the Tower. Something is going to toss them overboard. And maybe Susan Collins of Maine finally lost the faith of her people, among others. And then I also know that McConnell himself is under a battle against a woman named something McGrath for his seat, and the Five of Cups. Now, the Five of Cups is like sadness, sorrow, loss, 3 down, 2 up. They still have seats in the Senate, but they don't have the majority. I'm going to stand by that. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm just never going to use my tarot cards again. But what is the relationship of the Democratic Party to the Senate in terms of after the election? Now, I find this fascinating. First of all, the cards are good cards, right? In terms of the answer and the right side up. Number one is the Judgment card, which is the resurrection card. Rising from the dead, the angels call. Sorry about the glare and the light. It's nighttime here, so I have a light that's very glary. But the idea is resurrection or rising from the dead, or rebirth or something like that. Coming back. It's judgment / resurrection. So the answer is yes. Then then the next card that I pulled was the Temperance, which is restoring balance or restoring harmony or equilibrium. And the last card is the Nine of Cups. So self-satisfied, a very self-satisfied situation, emotionally self-satisfied. So the Democrats feel emotionally satiated with a happy yay feeling. And then another card fell out when I was pulling, so I'll go with it, and it was the Queen of Swords. So this could mean that it's because women are losing seats in the Senate, or new women are gaining seats in the Senate in the Democratic coalition or party. And then, of course, one more card I will pull for the Senate and the GOP, because I realized there's not an equal number. It's just when I saw the Tower, it was over. So I just pulled out from the deck real time the 5. I'm doing this recording Halloween night. 5 of Wands, struggling to battle a fight, going to the fight, wanting to. It's about competition. Doesn't mean that they win though, and they're embattled basically. They may be a majority, and then the Death card, they lose the Senate. So cleanly and clearly, the cards suggest that the GOP, the Grand Old Party, the Republican Party, loses its hold on the Senate. It may be only by 1 vote. That's all it takes. 1 seat that they no longer have a voting majority. All right. And given that the Democrats tend to stick together on their votes, just like the Republicans, it just means that now that most of the power has switched. I doubt that the Democrats will lose the House. That would be very unlikely. Now let's look at the astrology. Yeah. Okay. This is the astrology of Mitch McConnell. Because I thought, like, how can I go around this, to see what's going to happen regarding the Senate? And obviously the go around is to look at the guy who's in charge of the Senate. Does he have any fall in his chart? He sure does, guys. So let's share the screen so you know why I'm making my conclusions. Mitch McConnell doesn't have a birth time. We don't need it. The only thing that changes by virtue of a birth time that day is the ascendant and the midheaven, of course, but also what changes is his moon. If he's born after 3 a.m. on February 20th, that means that he his moon goes from Aries into Taurus. So I just picked noon that day for his chart. Now, I would find it interesting if his moon was in the 28th degree of Aries, and he was born between midnight and 3 a.m., because that would also account for some of what I think is going to happen to him, which is that Mars stationed at the 28th degree in order to go retrograde, and on September 9th or so. And Mitch McConnell's been embroiled in a lot of controversy. Like, he had remember those bruised hands? I mean, I really do think actually he was likely born in the first 3 hours of the day during that birthday on February 20th, because he had all these bruising on his hands and he's apparently fallen. I think he actually was, I think somebody came to, like the bad guys come and they try to like get information out of you by, twisting your fingernails off or something. I actually think something happened to him like that. I think he was tortured. I don't think he fell. But why? What was happening? Who was doing that to him and why? Like, what pressure was he under? I'm almost tempted to change his birth time just for the heck of it. Let's just do it. Because that's a very Mars thing. When he was so bruised, his hands were bruised, and if he fell, Mars rules injuries, not just torture and attack. So let's move him to the wee hours. Let's make him 1 a.m. that night. I'm just on my chart. You can't see. I don't think you can see, but I'm just changing him. I always use whole signs, update, save chart. Okay, so that's just changing his moon. And, I'm not even drawing in the ascendant midheavens for anybody here. We don't need them. So Mitch McConnell is born February 20th, 1942 in Sheffield, Alabama. He's the inner chart here. Before I talk about what the issues are, why he's going to go out of power, I really do have a strong feeling that part of why he's gone to such high levels of power is that this Juno in Scorpio, which is in his first house, if I use the not sure birth time, but it doesn't matter. His Scorpio Juno is in the 12th house. Is that true? Yes, of the United States of America. Secret dealings, hidden enemies. Juno, the goddess of marriage and divorce, can also represent secret agreements, compacts, agreements behind the scenes, so he's a real deal maker behind the scenes. I mean, the black file on him, the top secret file, would be pretty intense. This guy has his deal maker in the secret hidden realm of the USA chart. And the 12th house can also represent, like the 9th, foreign lands. So deals with deal makers or corporations from foreign lands. Who knows where he gets the money to do the things that he decides to do? Who's backing him? Now, I know I'm skeptical. I really am, or cynical. Now, this is just him. I don't want to spend a lot of time on him, but just say a couple of things. He is a Pisces sun. That's not going to change with the time of birth. And he does have probably the moon in the late degrees of Aries, accounting for where Mars is spending 6 months over his moon back and forth and really impacting him. And that's not necessarily going to be positive, because I think he's going to be ousted from power, but I will get to why I think that's true. And let's move on then. Let's just move past his personality. It's not that important, or his soul's imprint here. So the transits that are happening, and then we're going to look at the US chart. So these are the November 30th, end of the election day transits near midnight. And I wanted to really see what was hitting him and what could cause him to be overthrown from power. So first of all, his natal Mars has some relationship to Uranus, but Uranus is plundering around here in the early degrees, so it's not that big a deal. What's really captured my eye on election day for him is this goddess of the harvest, Ceres. Ceres. Some people call her Ceres. Ceres. She is literally both the rescuing mother Demeter, who's mother to Persephone, but she's also the scythe that harvests the wheat, that plucks the fruit, that creates the harvest season. And I've seen this being an omen for death in people's charts. I've seen it mean also sometimes literally a cutting away of power, or a harvesting of someone's position in the world. And you can see that scythe is coming to his son, and really only within 3 or 4 days after, or 1 or 2 weeks after the election, this scythe will slice his son. And I think it's going to take till mid-November, as I mentioned in my November video, for all the ballots to be accounted for. And I will do an Amy Coney Barrett video, because I do believe the Supreme Court will end up ruling on some of this stuff. And I think she's going to surprise and shock the GOP by ruling as an actual fair judge instead of a shoo-in who was kind of expected to go with the party line. It's not going to happen. So anyway, I don't think. So Ceres is going to sort of slice through the sun, which can represent the part of him that's the leader, right? And he's like this leader of the Senate, and there's like harvesting there, and that's ominous. And that's in itself just says something around this election is changing the story. Now, Juno coming to Juno in a chart, in natal charts, it can mean a new beginning of a relationship that could be quite significant, or the ending of one. She kind of causes divorces and she causes beginnings. And also when Juno comes to Juno, which is happening for him within close proximity to the election, and in the month after, it'll be exact. It could mean, like, sometimes it means the end of a contract, the end of an agreement, the end of a contractual status, especially with this Juno in the 12th house of hidden enemies and secrets and things undercover in the United States chart. So the end of his role as a covert agent of some sort. Honestly, I don't think Donald Trump has any power. I think he's a puppet of McConnell et al., whoever et al. Is. The others. So let's take a look at the US chart, because I want to keep this brief, because, you know, I'm really speculating here. I'm just trying to find a way into understanding the future through one person's chart, Mitch McConnell. But you can see that in the United States chart, the Sibley chart with Sagittarius 12 degrees rising is the chart that I've overlaid on McConnell. And the time I chose for Mitch McConnell is assuming now he's a Scorpio rising, which kind of makes sense right now. He does seem very Scorpionic to me. So he probably is born in the first 3 hours of 2000 and of his birthday, 1942, February 20th. Just a reminder, he's 78 years old. Before I go on, and I should mention that perfection age is important. I won't be able to tell anything about the ruler, but I can tell something about the house. So if you don't know what a perfection age is, every 12 years, you're in the first house pie slice, 12, 24, 36, right? So then we go 72, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's in his 7th house perfection age, right? And he's there until February. So throughout this whole election into the inauguration, he's still operating in his 7th house perfection, which I don't know what the real ruler is, because we don't really have his chart. This chart shows Venus right now, but it may not be. But in a 7th house perfection age, there's a lot of energy that goes into contracts, negotiations, sometimes legal matters. And they just elected a new justice again. There's also the energy of focusing on the others around you and you're also your own business partnerships and contracts that you may have established in the world. And also sometimes your own reputation. Even though the 10th house is often your reputation in the world, I've found that the 7th house can be like your 15 minutes of Warhol acclaim, fame, or notoriety. It kind of represents sometimes the audience if somebody's a public figure, which he is. And so there's some stuff going on there. Now, this is the age that he's at, and what's going through his 7th house, and has been since 2019 spring, is Uranus. So that's not at all, telling me much. But depending on whether or not Venus really is his ruler, I could have said more, but I'm not going to do that because I just don't know. But what I would point out again is this idea that he's got secret agreements, and he's a covert player in U.S. politics, which is not surprising, but he may have a lot of foreign money hidden behind him. So why do I say that again? Let me show you. And it could be the end of that story. When he was born, his natal Juno in Scorpio here, right, is what is the 12th house of the United States. See, there's the U.S. ascendant is going through at 12 degrees, this part of the chart. This is the United States 12th house. He has that Juno of his in the 12th house of the U.S. And really don't think that means that he's just making benign negotiations in secret. I think those are, especially if it's, Scorpionic, very toxic and very difficult and really nasty little side agreements all over the place, probably for his own monetary gain, but maybe for ideologue reasons as well. And also the United States chart, which is way out in the outer ring, right, in relationship to his inner chart, tells a few interesting stories as well. I find it curious that his personal Pluto-Chiron combination in Leo is really closely aligned, particularly Pluto, with the North Node of the United States. The North Node is the evolutionary impulse of the country, as if it was a person. It's trying to push toward the Leo, the bold, the courageous, the leaderful, the noble, at the worst, the preening, the self-indulgent, the entitled. And he's got Pluto, his god of death, on this North Node of the United States. This is not just an election. This is something more than an election. And yes, people in his generation have Pluto there on the North Node of the United States. But this election is literally a precursor to a rupture in the United States, because progressive, urban versus rural, conservative are coming into a loggerheads. Or if you look at Ken Wilber's integral theory, you could say that a lot of the basic reds and yellow, not yellows, the reds and oranges, which is the sensibility of people who are conservative and rural, is coming to a conflict with the yellows, that's the scientists, and the greens, the cultural creatives, or the progressives of the liberal established cities on the coasts of the United States. And of course, the Midwest, like Chicago. Alrighty, so anything else I want to say before we call it quits? Well, we know that this is an intense election for the United States, right? I mean, forget about Mitch McConnell for a minute. Let's just take a look at the transits. On the day of election, the Mars that belongs to the United States, which sits in the United States 8th house of death, is that natal Mars of the US chart is going to be experiencing the transit of the North Node in the sky, as well as the moon on election day near midnight. So there's a huge, that could be, again, 8th house is things that are hidden and things that are secret, but Mars is also riots, rebellion, unrest, okay, war. And the part of the US that represents that, element of the war and the warrior and the protests and all that, is being strongly activated on this election day with that North Node. Rahu, the North Node in transit through the sky, which is where the eclipses will be happening. That North Node really, really heats things up and inflames things that it touches. So it's inflaming the martial sentiment in the United States of America in the house of death. So I don't know what to say, but it may not be just peaceful protests. There may be militia style, looting, riots, militia stuff. I think Biden's going to win. So we're looking at more of the militant, militia, disenfranchised, white supremacy, QAnon, maybe even type people. But I hope not. I really do. Don't want to scare anyone. Well, what can you do? You just see it as you see it. Anything last thing about Mitch McConnell? Because the card's pretty well said it all. I could pull up Donald Trump just for fun, because who knows, right? Let's get him. What's the relationship between them? I have to open up Trump. So I don't know if you guys can see when I'm doing this. I hope not, because all my clients are on there. I don't think you're able to see when I do that. Donald Trump. Somebody I just was listening to is saying that they think that Mitch McConnell is a Sith Lord, or like a Sith Lord from Star Wars, with the who's like the Sith Lords, and I have to kind of agree. Alrighty, so sorry, Mitch. So Donald Trump's is over Mitch McConnell's. What is the relationship between the two of them, actually? What is it significant? I'm just looking for conjunctions. I mean, where planets are right over each other. Sorry, I'm taking forever because I've never looked at the two of them together before. In some ways, Mitch McConnell, I think he still is like the power behind the scenes kind of thing. But just the very fact that there's not like a lot of direct connection between the two of them in a way that I think is significant. And I can't look at the houses that really belong to Mitch McConnell right now because I don't have his real birth time. If he was a Scorpio rising, look how many planets of Donald Trump are in the hidden realms of the 12th house. What goes on behind the curtain? What goes on behind the scenes? Jupiter, Chiron, Juno, and Neptune. The reason that Donald Trump can lie so liberally and maybe even believe he's telling the truth and being manipulative is that he's got his own Neptune in a relationship to Mercury that is classically associated with pathological liars. There's his Mercury and there's his Neptune, and that contact between the two of them can bring, it's a trine. Yeah, it can bring lies, can bring deceit, can bring manipulation. And all that part of Donald Trump's all too willing to play into something that if this is truly the 12th house of McConnell, into what McConnell does behind the scenes. But it's a stretch because I really don't know the actual time for Mitch McConnell. when Donald Trump was born, he had the little Regulus, the king, on his 29-degree ascendant, which means born to rule and rise to power and all of that. And I didn't put the ascendants in here, but his ascendant then for Donald Trump is sitting here at the very tail end, co-joined with Mars of Leo. And that doesn't really connect with anything to do with in direct connection to anything like completely direct with Mitch McConnell. I don't think they talk a lot at all. I just think Mitch does his things behind the scenes and lets Donald go on his merry way. I really do. Although he may kind of coerce, or he may be manipulating Donald, if that's true, the 12th house behind the scenes. But he's not like, the two of them aren't spending a lot of time talking from this chart. Okay, that's enough. I think that tells me, between the tarot cards and the charts, with Mitch McConnell having the scythe of Ceres approaching him, that very likely he will be deposed from his powerful seat in the Senate, and that very likely the United States Senate will swap places with Democrats in power, maybe by one seat, but that's enough to make it a majority. All right, guys, ciao, ciao. Stay tuned for my Amy Coney Barrett, the chameleon, who will vote in ways that surprise people. Look at her chart. And also I will try to get a Biden chart in there. People like Biden. That's the thing. They just like him. He's not easy to dislike. He might win just on pure white, middle class, energy, going, he's a nice guy, he seems like a nice guy. I mean, I think he has his Jupiter somewhere well placed in the US chart, meaning that also he seems generous, affable, and likable to most people. So we'll get to that next. Ciao, ciao.